Well, those are a little bit broken, a little bit bent, a little bit bad. So, in order, this was my intake on this cylinder here, right close to the end. I can't remember if that's 1 or 2. Then the exhaust was the broken one, and then the next intake valve push rod was broken but still together. This cup right here was just bouncing around right there. So I got a hold of Merchant Automotive. They are about an hour from me, and come to find out, the guy I talked to lives about 10 or 15 minutes from me. So I bought a set.
Proceed to the route.
Yeah, I bought a set of high performance Merchant Auto push rods, and I will be replacing all of them on this side. But first I'm going to use a straight edge along that lower valve cover and use a depth gauge to check all of the valve heights to hopefully confirm or deny any valve being bent. So that's my plan. If I don't find any bad valves based on the height or depth, I will put this engine back together on this side and fire it back up before I tear that side apart for the repair or replacement of the new push rods. So I just picked these up from a guy named Joe who works at Merchant Automotive, and I am in so much thanks, I guess, to this company for having some push rods in stock, and for Joe bringing them home from work and having me stop by his house to get them. That's just awesome service right there. So I do believe that they believe in long-term relationships based on integrity and personal service. That's pretty awesome. So let's take a look at these things. These are awesome. They look to be one piece, and they're not like welded tips. They're monsters. So I already like them better than stock. I've got this side put together, and I'm going to roll it over a few times by hand and just look at stuff. And I also broke loose all of those nuts there to adjust the valves. And I have a sequence that they sent with the kit for the push rods. And I know that I have to measure 12 thou with a feeler gauge at each one of these bridges. But there's a certain sequence in which I can do it based on number 1 or number 4 cylinder at top dead center. And they even taught me how to figure that part out too. Well, this should be self-explanatory. A 4-cycle engine goes suck, squeeze, bang, blow, right? The intake happens when the piston goes down. The squeeze happens when the valves are both closed and the piston comes back up to top dead center. Bang happens just past top dead center, and both valves are still open. And then blow, the piston's going back up and the exhaust valve opens. So I need to follow this sequence and make sure that I'm at top dead center and not 180 degrees off top dead center. So I'm going to be rotating the crank and watching the valves. It is dark down here, I know, but I found the timing mark on the crank harmonic balancer, and then 90 degrees to the left or towards the passenger tire on the block is another mark. So it is currently lined up not like you can see that, but on the last 90 degrees or so towards top dead center on the compression stroke, this is the number 1 cylinder, and those valves need to be open, or I'm sorry, they need to be closed, which means these push rods need to be down for that last remaining stroke up. That's when the compression is happening, the squeeze before the ignition happens, and it bang pushes the piston back down. So I am just before top dead center, and my quest is to find whether this is top dead center for cylinder number 1 or for cylinder number 4, which is 180 off. I didn't actually see any valves move by watching that video over, so my guess is that that is top dead center. So I'm going to rotate it one more time and see if those valves move, because one way or the other they should be. So in that last clip you could see that the exhaust was open as I came up to top dead center. So that's the blow cycle. So next there should be the intake valve opening, which could be back to the suck, and as it comes back up to top dead center, both valves will be closed, and that's the squeeze before compression and ignition. So there we have it. We are at top dead center on the compression stroke. Now, Merchant Automotive has a little Duramax valve adjustment guide, and they are telling me that at top dead center of compression stroke for cylinder 1, which is this one on camera, I can adjust intake and exhaust on this cylinder because they're both closed, or yeah, both closed. I can also do intake for 3 and 5 and exhaust for 8. And then when I do 180 off, which is 1 full revolution, then I can do the rest of the valves. Now I have a 12 thou feeler gauge, and I need to get that right in here and have that be snug right on the bridge. So I obviously have some adjusting to do, but I backed all of these off before I even started. So I have all kinds of room to adjust that with a flat blade screwdriver, and then use a 14 millimeter to crank it down and tighten it up. I woke up early this morning and I'm already running late. There's a list of things long as my arm I won't get done today. Is it Tuesday? Is it Wednesday? They're running into each other. Somebody tell me when it's my day, 'Cause man, this life can sure be a mother. So tomorrow I'm taking me fishing. Hang a sign on the door of my life. Tell the world that I've gone missing and I won't be back for a while. I'm so tired of only wishing I can leave my trouble behind. Wanna be front porch rockin' with a big sun dropping in a blue sky, and sit back and get high on the living part of life. Well, all of these valves are set at the top dead center for piston 1. And it's funny because you kind of get to the point where you can feel when you're getting close before you even have to set the feeler gauge in there. But yeah, those are all good. I'm going to roll it over 1 revolution or 180 degrees off and hit that top dead center at 4. So I have to do the exhaust for cylinder 3, the exhaust for cylinder 5, and the intake for cylinder 7. So the whole bank is done now, and now it's time to rotate, they say 10 revolutions of the engine before I check it all again. All the valves were good, and the 12th thou gap with the feeler gauge was spot on after all those revolutions. I did lose count, but it was a lot, and it was enough to make sure everything was in place, I guess. So it's time to clean up that valve cover and get it glued back down, and see if this thing is running any better. I know it's going to be running better, but making sure that this is taking care of the job, and if that's all good, then I'll do the other side. If there's still a bad noise, then it's kind of pointless to move on.